Finally, on November 28, 2022, the parcel from China arrived with a brand new TinySA Ultra, further well protected by bubble wrap and the boxes with a thin plastic sleeve. The nice looking presentation case will last for a long time as the home for the TinySA Ultra. Inside the presentation case, the TinySA Ultra is further protected by a plastic bag, and the front of the display is also protected by a cover which has to be peeled off. When the cardboard insert is lifted, we get access to a USB-C charging and PC control cable, a whip antenna, 2 test cables, and a hand strap with a guitar plinth for operating the touchscreen. On top of the unit, slide the power switch in on position and observe that the unit is now operating with a noise floor from 0 to 800 MHz at a level of -90 dBm. Now is the time to switch off the unit and connect the USB cable to the unit and to an USB port on your PC or a 5V USB charger before doing any further playing with the unit. On the cardboard insert is printed a recommendation to view the user manual and see which unlock code the Ultra mode requires by either entering in your browser the link to tinysa.org or with your mobile phone scan the QR code. The TinySA homepage is common for the original TinySA with 2.8-inch display and the new TinySA Ultra with a 4-inch color display. The Ultra mode unlocking code is found by clicking on the link Ultra mode and scroll down to the bottom of the page where the code is found. The red arrow is pointing to where to buy the TinySA Ultra. The safe places to purchase pending where you live is listed. The Senko store is the manufacturer's own store. Going back to the main page, there is a lot of documentation referenced. Due to the strong similarity between the TinySA and the TinySA Ultra, information or documentation for the TinySA is valuable. An article I wrote on the TinySA is linked at the red arrow. A couple of videos is linked at the green arrow, and in particular the YouTube channel of Erik Korsuk is worth to study. A very comprehensive user manual was written in 2021, and it contains also the protocol definitions, because the TinySA and TinySA Ultra are PC controllable. No driver is needed to install, and for normal operation the communication with the TinySA Ultra is in USB serial mode, also called command mode. For updating the firmware, it can be brought into a DFU mode as well. The protocol definitions listed in the user manual from 2021 can be utilized for the advanced user to write very complex programs for the TinySA Ultra using the Python scripts Erik Korsuk has provided, shown at the red arrow. It has been utilized extensively during the development phase. A must-have application for all users is the TinySA app, which is downloaded from the link shown with the red arrow. It allows you, first of all, to use many more data points, and you can also create images of the TinySA Ultra screen. Only download the two shown files, place them in a folder, and create a shortcut on your desktop to the exe file. The image for the TinySA app on the main page is an image of an earlier version. You see here the correct one, the latest one, and there are facilities for many more data points, facilities for enable hamband, and also to click on the small camera icon to create a copy of the live screen of the TinySA Ultra. The screen capture can be saved in 3 different image formats, and as you can see, there are many other facilities to enable. It is highly recommended to join the TinySA IO group, where you can communicate with other happy users and where all the news will arrive, for an example, new firmware updates. On the TinySA homepage there is a section called Updating the Firmware, and on that page you will find a link, like shown here, to the latest firmware. The formats are binary, DFU, ELF and hex. My favorite way of updating the firmware is simply by using the STM32Cube programmer, which you are googling and finding a about link. The procedure described on the main page is a little complicated, so here is a straightforward, simple method. When the STM32Cube programmer is installed, then first do the following. While holding down the rocker switch while powering on, the TinySA Ultra is brought in DFU programming mode and the screen turns black. Now start the STM32Cube programmer and ensure that you select USB, where the red arrow is pointing. Next step is to click on the icon Connect. Now the TinySA Ultra firmware is loaded to the screen. Now click on the icon Open File, where the red arrow is pointing. Locate the binary file and select Open. Next step is to click on the icon Download at the red arrow and observe the yellow progress bar in the bottom of the screen. When the prompt Download completed is shown, then click on OK, followed by a click on Disconnect at the red arrow. That's it. The TinySA Ultra firmware is updated. Close the STM32 programmer and recycle the power for the TinySA. To check a successful update of the firmware, go to the menu system, click on Config, then click on Version, and check that the correct build time and version is loaded into the TinySA Ultra. The first thing to do with a brand new TinySA Ultra, or after a firmware update and when it's fully charged, is to perform a calibration. Connect the two SMA connectors on the TinySA Ultra with a test cable. The TinySA Ultra has an internal 30 MHz calibration signal delivered from the cal output SMA connector. Then perform the calibration. That is done by selecting in the menu system Config and then Level Cal. There are two calibrations to perform. First from 100 kHz to 5.34 GHz and then above 5.34 GHz. As you see on the screen, it is the further complex calibration which is performed. And actually the calibration above 5.34 GHz requires a external signal of 5.34 GHz, which can be delivered from another TinySA Ultra or from a signal generator. It is only required when ultimate accuracy is required, as preset compensation is already included in the setup. Else, it takes a while to get through the calibration process, where the various settings required for the individual calibration is automatically performed. You will see the settings on the left side about levels and LNA and so forth. So that's it for a new TinySA Ultra, or after a firmware update. There are more points on the config for testing the correct performance. That is the touch calibration and the self-test. The self-test is running through 13 individual tests, ensuring the correct performance of the TinySA Ultra. When the self-test is ended, it reverts automatically to normal scanning mode, as you can see. To enable the Ultra mode, first click in the menu system on Config, then More, then click on Enable Ultra, and you will be prompted to visit the TinySA homepage for finding the code. Then there will be an input field where you can enter in the number of the code for Ultra. When that is done, the Ultra mode is displayed with a tick mark indicating it is enabled. After the Ultra mode is enabled, the sweep changes to going from 0 to 3 GHz automatic. The second level calibration above 5.34 GHz is not enabled yet, so let's see what happens. In the menu system, click on frequency and change the start and stop frequency to 5 and 6 GHz. There is a jump of 10 dB at 5.34 GHz. The calibration procedure is only fine-tuning the sensitivity about this jump, and it is a matter of a decibel or so. So not necessary if you do not need the ultimate precision. The noise floor jump will still be there due to changing to harmonic mixing. As the TinySA Ultra is supplied with a small SD card for saving information on, it is a good idea to set time and date. Go to Config, select Date, Time, and do as prompted. That was a 13-minute long story with information about a lot of items and where to find more information and so forth, which otherwise might be cumbersome to find yourself. To further learn about the TinySA family of products, this document is worth reading. Please visit the YouTube page by Erik Kosuk, where there are many educational videos about the TinySA and TinySA Ultra. You may also click on the subscribe button to be notified when there are new videos available. How to learn to use the TinySA Ultra. Then go to the main page and click on Menu Tree. Erik Kosuk has done a fantastic job to describe all the menus and submenus. This is the way to self-learning using the TinySA Ultra. If you have any questions, then go to the TinySA IO group, where you see the link in the picture. There you can get all the help you need. There you also will be notified about new firmware updates. And in few days after this video is created, there will be some additions which I will just show here. A storage menu is added where you can load BMP files, command files, and you can disable auto naming, and then there will be a complete QWERTY keyboard available for voluntary naming of the files. This is a list of 112 measurements made in the period from May to August this year, and it would have been nice to have the QWERTY keyboards at that time for naming of the files. When a BMP file is loaded, it is possible to scroll through the files by means of the rocker switch. The preset menu has got an addition by load from SD cards, and the store menu has been extended with store to SD card.